Hey everyone, and welcome back to Life with Casey. Today I'm really excited to kick off the first part of a 4-part series that I'm going to begin on how to learn a language. Each one of these videos will share a different approach that you could take to learn a language. Now before I get started on introducing the first method that you could take to learn a language, these methods are not formulas to learning a language. You don't have to pick one and that's going to be the way that you have to learn a language. A lot of it depends on your schedule and how much time you have to devote to learning a language. What the purpose is for learning a language. Are you traveling and just want to know the basics? Are you going to be using a foreign language in your work and so you want to get a little bit more fluent? Are you dating someone from a different country and you want to be able to get to a level where you can speak to them in their native language? And also, you can mix and match. You can choose different approaches for different times in your life. You can put them together to really approach fluency and get fluent faster. So keep that in mind as you're watching this series. So this first approach that we're going to talk about today is the most traditional manner of learning a language, and that's through a course either at a university, a local community college, or even just a language group, maybe in your community that offers classes on learning a language. So this method I think is really great for someone who's just starting out and has absolutely no knowledge of the language that they're trying to learn. I think it's important as a beginner to build a base of knowledge and to really master the fundamentals so that later you can grow upon the knowledge that you have and you can really become more advanced knowing that you have a solid base knowledge of the language. And this is really what I mean by a base is just the most simple aspects of language, the alphabet, the pronunciation of the sounds. Maybe you don't know what every single word means, but at least if you see it, you can pronounce it. You can start thinking in your head what that could potentially mean based off of the base knowledge that you have. Also, when I started learning Portuguese, I only took Portuguese 1, the very basic class at a university, and then 6 months later, when I finished the course, I went to Brazil for a month. Just having the base knowledge, 5 months, 1 semester of basic Portuguese, I was able to communicate not in full sentences, not really deep thoughts, but it was enough that I could get around Brazil and order off of a menu, have very basic conversations, introduce myself to the people there. And I really think that registering in a class or even just a community speaking group is really great to get you to that level where you learn the basics. When you think about a child that's just first learning to speak, they really need guidance and they need someone that's going to hold their hand, someone who already knows how to speak, someone who already knows the language that can guide them through the process of learning the basics and the fundamentals of a language. This is one huge advantage to enrolling in a course in a university. You have a professor who already knows how to speak the language. In a lot of cases, they're most likely a native speaker. And so they can really guide you through those beginning phases where everything is new. You're doubting yourself. You look at a word, you don't know how to pronounce it. You don't really know what anything means. Another benefit of enrolling in a course at the beginning stage of learning a language is that accountability factor. I know so many people that have wanted to learn a language for their job, for their spouse, for travel purposes, and they think that downloading a program on the computer or just doing some self-initiated learning is going to be good enough to get them to that level that they want to be of fluency, even if they just want to learn a little bit to travel. But after a week or two of starting to learn and do research online, they kind of get disinterested or their life gets a little bit hectic and they don't have the time to devote to it that they normally would, or they get distracted. And so when you enroll in a course at a university and you have homework and you have tests that you're going to have to pass, and every day or a couple times a week or even once a week you're going to this class, you're hearing the language, you're speaking with other people, you're going through exercises in a textbook that have been designed specifically for language acquisition. These are all incredibly helpful factors to get you to that basic level where you can start to communicate and build off of your knowledge. So I did some research. I'm here in Colorado, and I looked at a couple of the different universities and local community college, and the price for a university class for just basic Spanish, let's say, really depends on the university you go to or the community college. It also depends on the credit hours per class. A normal one semester course is 3 credit hours. But I found a price range of as low as $300 for an entire semester, all the way up to $1,200 per semester based off of the university. So if you were to go to a local community college, enroll in Spanish 1 for $300 for a semester, I don't think that's too much to really get yourself, really invest in that beginning stage of learning the language that you can grow off of after. Another thing is, depending on your schedule, let's say that you have one night a week to devote to learning a language. There are night courses where you can go for 2.5 hours and it's only once a week. Or let's say you don't want to dedicate a whole night to learning a language. They offer a couple of 50-minute classes 3 times a week, or 30 minutes once every day. It really depends on your schedule, but there are a lot of options out there, and I would encourage you to look at some of the local universities, community colleges, or even some of the groups in your community that might offer language classes. I think that this is going to be really fundamental for a lot of you to get you to that base level, to get you to a level of comfortability that then you can grow off of and maybe try some of the other methods. Another one of the benefits of enrolling in a class or sitting in a course and learning a language is that you really get all aspects of language acquisition. In a course, they're going to teach you speaking, they're going to teach you listening, they're going to teach you reading, they're going to teach you writing. Depending on what language you want to learn, if you choose Mandarin or Russian or Arabic, there could be a completely different alphabet that you need to learn. Writing is just one aspect of language acquisition, but if it's a language that's a little more complicated, you might need to dedicate more time in a class specifically towards that aspect. Another benefit of taking a university course to begin your language learning process is that in most cases your professor is going to be qualified. In most cases they're going to be a native speaker, and if not, they've gone through a whole doctorate of learning that specific language, and so you know that the instruction that you're getting is valid and is correct. Sometimes if you go online, if you use other resources, you don't know exactly where they're coming from. You could get one opinion from one person, you could get another direction from another person. If you enroll in a university course, you're going to get very valid direction from someone who's gone through the process of learning that language or is a native speaker in that language. The information is going to be genuine. So lastly, now I'm going to discuss a few of the disadvantages of learning a language through a university course. The main thing that most people are thinking is the cost. If you try and learn a language on some online resources or more self-initiated programs, you don't have to pay anything. You can find information on the internet, you can find YouTube videos, and we'll go over those methods in videos to come. But when you enroll in a university course, you do have to pay for it. So that could be one concern and one potential disadvantage to this method of learning a language. Another disadvantage could be the time aspect. Maybe your schedule is really hectic and you can't commit to a single day a week or a couple of days a week to be going to a university. Maybe you don't have a university that's close or a local community college that's close to learn a language, and so you end up driving an hour just for your course. That could be another potential disadvantage. The other methods that we're going to talk about, a lot of them that are self-initiated or on your laptop, they're right there with you in your house. You don't have to drive somewhere and spend the time in your schedule to be dedicated to a certain time. The last disadvantage that I see is I know a lot of people, once they get out of college, they don't want to go back. They don't want to go back to homework and tests, and so that could be a potential disadvantage for a lot of people. But again, I do think for those of you that really want to get started learning a language, but haven't had much success if you've tried a different method, or you really just feel like you need some guidance to get you to that level where you know the fundamentals, I think this is a really, really great option. The reason that I am extremely fond of this option is it's because this is how I began my studies of Spanish and Portuguese. As I mentioned in my last video, I began studying Spanish when I was in 7th grade, and I continued all the way through college. I learned so much in my language classes, not just about the specific language, but also about the culture and the histories of the countries where the language is spoken. It was the same with Portuguese. I began studying Portuguese in college. Learning Spanish and Portuguese in a classroom really gave me that fundamental knowledge that I needed when I studied abroad in Venezuela, in Brazil, in Argentina. They got me to a level where I was comfortable when I met my husband to have conversations with him, to speak with his family. I had the discipline that I needed in college to devote to learning a language, and it got me to that level of fluency. So I highly recommend this option for all of you out there who are beginning to learn a language. Also, I know that this method is maybe not the most exciting. Some of you might have thought that this series was going to be extremely innovative methods to learning a language, and it still will be, but this very first option is the more traditional option. I realize it's not extremely exciting, but I do think it's a good option for a lot of you. Now, in the next 3 videos, we're going to talk about 3 other methods that you can choose to learn a language. I'm going to let you know what they are now, so you'll have to come back and watch the rest of the series for more information on these other methods. The next video, part 2, that I'm going to do in this series is about purchasing a language learning program. The most famous of these is Rosetta Stone, but something like that. That will be part 2 of the series. Part 3 of this series is going to be dedicated to immersion programs and study abroad. The last video of this series is going to be about self-initiated learning. This is not through a university course, an immersion program, a language program such as Rosetta Stone. It's just you and the resources that are available to you either online or in the library, or any other resources that you could use to learn a language. So I hope you liked this video on the first method towards learning a language. Definitely subscribe to my channel so you can see the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th part. Check out my Instagram, which has photos from my trips and different aspects of life with Casey. And also leave any comments with any feedback you have, anything that you would like to see in this series, any questions that you have for me about my language acquisition process. I'd love to get your feedback and hear what you think about this series, and we'll see you soon.